everybody. Hopefully you can hear me all and see me. First of all, I'd like to thank Andy Boswell for inviting me on this webinar. We've seen some absolutely fantastic webinars over the last few months, and I think it's a really terrific training resource that Andy has put on for the network. So I'm really grateful, first of all, to Andy for putting the webinars on, but also for inviting me on tonight. And what I'm going to do is share with you a bit about our story and our progress in the business. And I want just to begin by saying that one of the concepts that I want people to take on board is that Clean Easy, like your life, is a journey. And what I'm going to do is make some observations from our journey. And the first point I want to make about that is that we got involved in the business about 12 years ago, and we joined to make a bit of extra money, like about £300 per month. And we joined really out of desperation because we were in a financial black hole. Some of you may have heard my story before. I'm not going to go into huge detail, but for the benefit of all those that haven't, and there's probably quite a few on this call tonight that haven't heard my story. Basically, I had a bit of little local difficulty with the Inland Revenue a few years ago, and had to go down to the Revenue to discuss a liability that I'd accrued. And I went down expecting to get a tax bill of about £10,000, and unfortunately was advised that the bill was actually £60,000. And I also had a few other debts. I had an overdraft of about £20,000, and I had credit card debts, and I had a couple of loans as well, I think. And if you added it all up, it was actually around £100,000 worth of debt that we were in when we joined the business. And so we joined, I suppose, more out of more in hope than expectation, and we joined pretty much out of desperation, really. And that's where we were coming from. So we had this huge mountain of debt. My background was I used to work in insurance, in corporate insurance, and I had what most people would call a good job. But the reality, I would suggest, is that the concept of a good job is actually something of a misnomer these days. There's no such thing as a good job, really. And although I had a good income, about 40k, it's not much use if you know, if you earn 40 but you spend 50 or 60, it doesn't really matter what you earn, does it? And that's the sort of situation we were in when we got started in the business. And so we needed to find ways of making extra income, and I worked in another network. I joined another network before Clean Easy, which was the American company, a company that starts with A, and worked that really hard for about a year. Went to lots of meetings, read lots of books, and for a while I actually thought I'd found the solution to my financial problems. But unfortunately, after about a year of that, my biggest check in that company was just £38.50, and didn't really impress my creditors very much. Wasn't able to make any real headway with that in terms of, you know, changing my financial situation. But having spent a year developing myself in that business and developing the mindset of a self-employed entrepreneur, I was able to at last grasp one very important fact, and that was that the only way that I was going to get out of the situation I was in was to own my own business. And most of the people that I knew closely at that time were advising me to go bankrupt. But that was a difficult decision for me because I wouldn't have been able to carry on working in corporate insurance having been made bankrupt. So I decided to find an alternative way out, and I started looking for ways of making extra money. Joined the other network, didn't work out. So what I did after that network was I decided to set up an insurance brokerage, because that was the only thing I really knew and understood. And I thought, if I know and understand the market that I'm operating in, then my chances of success are much higher. So I managed to beg, borrow and steal about £70,000 with a friend of mine, and we set up a brokerage, And to cut a long story short, we got it up and running, and it went very, very well, to such an extent that I got an income of about 35,000 a year, had a company Mercedes, and although I was able, that was good income, I still really wasn't managing to make any headway in paying down the debt. So I kept looking for ways of making extra money, and I ended up joining Clean Easy up by answering an advert in the newspaper about delivering and collecting catalogues. So I got started, and in my first week put out, I think, about 300 catalogues, and I got £70 of orders, which was pretty amazing. Now when I tell people that, most of the people in my team, when I say that to them, I only got £70 in the first week, they're not very impressed by that. But I can tell you that that £70 of retail customers' orders was more volume than I'd achieved in the whole of the previous 12 months in that other network. And for a while I just couldn't get it out of my mind that the business worked. People actually bought from the catalogues, and that you could actually earn a retail profit. And because I understood the concept of network marketing, I immediately got invited to a meeting, and I went down to a meeting and I met Gary Watson amongst other people who were making really, really good incomes in the business, who were happy to show me proof of their income. And so it seemingly, on the face of it, it was all of the things that the other network promised to be, but I was actually shown reality. I was shown proof and evidence of income, and I knew that the turnover could be achieved because I'd experienced it for myself. So I'd established in my own mind that people ordered from the catalogue. And I believe to this day that separates Clean Easy from any other network you'll find in the entire world. There is no other network, to my knowledge, where people can achieve the levels of turnover that we achieve on the retail part of the business. So I got started, and to cut a long story short, we then started to build the business. Now, I built the business I started building the business alongside my insurance brokerage, and the brokerage went really, really well, and I had a 35% share of that business, but I thought of it as my own business. And the reason why I mention that now is that when you join Clean Easy, it's very easy to undervalue what you've actually got your hands on, because it only costs less than a couple of £100 to get started, but when you buy that business kit and the catalogues, you buy 100% of the Clean Easy brand franchise. And this is really, really important to understand. And if you are making notes, please do make a note that you are now a business owner and you own 100% of the brand franchise, because I only had 35% of that business, that insurance brokerage, and the guy that I set the business up with had the other 65%. And in reality, the only difference between us was that he put in more money than me, but I was the one with all the expertise. I did all the marketing of the business, and I did all the work in the business, and I got all the contracts and everything else. But the business went so well that he thought it would be a really, really good idea if he could get his hands on 100% of the business, so he fired me. Which, looking back, was the best thing that ever happened to me, although I didn't quite see it that way at the time. So just be aware that you're now a business owner with 100% of the brand franchise, and no one can squeeze you out, which is what basically happened to me. So I had to go get another job, but we joined Clean Easy. We went to 21% in about 3 months, and we had a cheque for £1,300 from Clean Easy, and I thought everything in the garden was rosy because I had a good income from my insurance brokerage and a growing income from Clean Easy. So when I lost that, I had to go get another job, and I worked in that job, which was another brokerage, which I hated, and I worked for 18 months part-time until I was bronze exec, and at that point qualified for my first 2 conferences, which were Monaco and Cairns in Australia. And we went to Monaco, and we stayed in the Grand Hotel Monaco, which was an absolutely amazing experience. And the cost of the dinner in Monaco was about £250 a head just for the food. And it's difficult for me to describe just how good that conference was, and the experience of being with all the other achievers in the business had a major impact on me. And then we qualified for Cairns, and we snorkeled the Barrier Reef, and we began to mix with and associate with some of the top people in the business. Now I'm just going to give you my first slide here, and what actually happened was, this is a highlight. This is one of the trips that we've been fortunate enough to go on. This is a picture of me climbing the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and also here's one of us on the elephant safari in Thailand. Oh, hold on, it seems to be going racing through here, but too quick. Now so we went to Thailand, and this is a clip I've taken from Gavin. I think I've obviously pressed the wrong button here, but this is a clip from Gavin Scott, and one of the things that I would advise you to do is to go to make sure you've got the right plan in place to balance your business. And what I mean by that is you should have a balance between retailing and sponsoring. And the reason why I make that point, this little picture here was an idea that I stole from Gavin Scott, and we all know that there's two sides to the business, which is retailing and sponsoring. I'll get this right in a minute. Just bear with me 1 second. Right, now so the first part of the business is obviously retailing, and the second part is sponsoring. And what I would encourage you to do is to have a balance between the two, and sometimes people get that wrong. I've obviously clicked something here because my slides are just running through automatically. I'll just pause it for a second. And what I would encourage people to do is to realize the fact that the retail will give you a really good income in the business, and quite often people experience a few challenges with retail whereby, for example, their order might be delayed or delivery might be delayed, so they go to great lengths then to run around, make sure the customers are notified, and they look after the customers, make sure the retail income is secured by looking after the customers, which is great. I think that's a good idea. But I have a question for you, and I'm going to ask you a few questions as we go through this training. And my first question to you is, if you're aiming to make sure that you get the balance right between retailing and sponsoring, if you were to have an experience whereby you didn't get your order one day, it was delayed for whatever reason, and you ran around ringing all the customers, making sure they knew what was going on, what would you do if at the end of a week your leads were not delivered on time? And what I mean by that is, what would you do if you went through a week and instead of having the right number of leads that you're looking for, that you plan to get, you only got half your leads, or a quarter of your leads, or a third of your leads? What action would you take, just as you do with the retail, to make sure that gets back on track with your customers? What would you do to look after your sponsoring, which creates the residual income? Because bear in mind, the retail creates a linear income. Now you can get a very good linear income by retailing, but you can't really get a residual income from retailing. So make sure you've got the right balance in place between retailing and sponsoring. And if you haven't got enough leads, what would you do about that? And I would advise you to write that down, and just make sure that you have some kind of something in place that you can use to adjust your level of leads or inquiries coming into your business. Because if I didn't have enough leads coming in that early stage of the business, when I was working the business to bronze exec part-time, that would really have kept me awake at night. I wouldn't have been able to sleep at night. If I wasn't in a position where I could be confident that I could build the business by having the right numbers in place, that really seriously would have given me sleepless nights. So make sure that you pay as much attention to that side of the business as you do to the retail side of the business. Now, next thing to say is, I believe that a major part of our business is the strategy and planning of what you're actually trying to do. And it certainly involves setting some goals and deciding what you want from the business. But if there's a balance to be struck, I would suggest it's 80% strategy and about 20% skill. And I'll come back to the skill in a second on my next slide if I can get this thing to slow down. But what I'm going to talk about first of all is a few little things that we've put in to lots of trainings. And what I would say is what you need to do. Let's see, are we doing this? Okay, first thing that I recommend people do is to pay yourself first. And what I mean by that is that most people join Clean Easy because they've got financial problems of some kind. They would like to have more money, but one of the key things that I've learned since I've been in the business is it's a really, really good idea for you to keep a proportion of all the money you earn. And it should be yours to keep forever. Before you pay anybody else, before you pay your gas bill or your electricity bill or whatever it is, or creditors if you've got creditors, pay yourself first. Because if you do that, you're more important, and what you're doing is you're telling your subconscious mind that you're more important than any of your creditors. And I believe that's really, really fundamentally important, is that you must value yourself and pay yourself before you pay anybody else. Second thing is you need to invest in your business. Like I said, this is 100% of a brand franchise, and you must treat it like that, and you must reinvest at least some of the money that you make back in to your business. And then most important of all, next point is you must invest in yourself, because you really have a choice now. If you're going to go on this Clean Easy journey, you can be one of two things. You can be the greatest asset in your business, you can become the greatest asset in your business, or you can be the greatest liability in your business. And the choice is really yours. But I would advise you to make sure, as part of your overall business strategy, you must have a plan to develop yourself in your business. So invest in yourself. And then you can look at questions like, you know, how much should you retail? And the reason why retailing is very, very important in our business is because it establishes in your own mind that the business works. That's the first thing. And that, as I said, when I got started, that was very important, because I'd been in another business where I wasn't convinced that it worked. But in Clean Easy, it's very, very easy to go out and establish in your own mind that the business works. And then from there, you can develop a strategy, and you can reinvest some of that retail profit into advertising or whatever you need to do with the income that you're getting. But make sure that you've got enough retail to enable you to make the extra income you're looking for when you join, but also to put some back in the business. And then you need to look at the overall picture of how you're going to build a network. How many rods have you got in the pond? That's a really good question to ask yourself at this juncture in the business. If your business isn't moving forward quickly, that's a good one to ask, is have you got enough rods out in the pond? How many rods are you actually using? Because I've come across a lot of people and they're only really using maybe one rod in the pond. But the question is, have you got a good game plan for your future in the business? Because a lot of it, 80% of it, I would suggest to you, is really just having the right plan. Now, next thing is, what about, let's come on to the 20% skill, because that's also an important aspect. Or is it? This is a good question. Is there a skill factor in this business? You'll hear lots of people say that it's a very, very simple business, and you know, you don't need a lot of skill to build a Clean Easy business. And the main thrust of that I would agree with. But I want to just make a comment about some webinars that I've seen this year. And my first comment is, there was a webinar done by the authors of a book called Go for No. Now this book is a book I've read, enjoyed, recommended to other people. And if you read the book in the context of all the other books that we recommend, there's value in the philosophy of the book. But the main thrust of that book, or its main emphasis, is that it's the quantity of the work that you do, or the number of people that you share the business with, or the quantity of appointments that you do, or packs that you send out, whatever your system is, It's the quantity rather than the quality of what you're doing that's really important. And this has become, to some people, it sort of worries me slightly, because it's become almost a mantra for some people that it doesn't matter how many no's you get. And I begin to question that, because you may well remember, those of you that were on the webinar with Big Al, a few months ago we had a webinar from Big Al, which is a bit like the other end of the spectrum, because Big Al's main emphasis and focus was actually on the quality of what you do in sharing the business opportunity with other people, and his main emphasis was on skill levels, people skills, presentation skills, you know, phrases that you can use to summarize the benefits of the business. So you've got two kind of opposite ends of the spectrum, and the question is, where should we be? Should we be going for massive quantity of numbers, or should we be looking at the quality of what we do? Well, my answer to this, I am going to answer the question, by the way. This is one I am going to answer. It's a rhetorical question in that sense, but I would ask you I would suggest to you rather that logic demands that what we say and how we say it does influence the outcome. And if you accept that, then it must be a matter of reasonable importance that we learn how to do that effectively. And I think that if you're sensible, what you should do is by all means go for no, by all means go through large numbers of people and expect people to decline to take up your opportunity. By all means do that. But I would suggest that what you actually need to do is to find out, there's always going to be a benchmark. And if you are making notes, I would ask you to write down what is the benchmark ratio of successful people in this business, or to use Jeff Webb's terminology, ask your incredible upline what the benchmark is for what they do in the business. And what I mean by that is, how many people does your successful upline speak to? How many no's do they get before they get a yes? Because if they're making £3 a month, £4 a month, £5 a month, £10 a month, there will be a benchmark. There will be an established ratio that you can work towards in the business. And my advice to you would be to consistently refine the quality of the work that you do and try to be as good as your incredible upline. Because if you're in Rob Foster's business, or Gavin Scott's business, or Bob Webb, or Peter and Jackie White, Chris Mason Paul, people like that, they will be able to tell you how many no's you should be getting. And I think that's really important, because if you don't have that, you're really just batting blind, not so much being like a charging rhinoceros, but more like a charging lemming, actually. So my advice to you would be, by all means go for no, but find out what the successful people do and how many no's they get. And that, because it's not just good enough to get a string of no's and be batting blind. It's a bit, the analogy I always use when I talk about this in meetings is, it's a bit like learning to drive a car. And when you get in the car the first time, if you can remember how you were when you first drove a vehicle, it wasn't that good. And what you did over a period of time is you practiced and you got better, and you refined your skill level to the point where you became competent at driving that vehicle. So I don't think you should just go for no, because if you apply that sort of philosophy to that subject of driving a car, it'd be pretty crazy, wouldn't it? Just jump in a car, drive as fast as you could, you know, mow down a few innocent pedestrians and just keep driving, hoping that it'll turn out all right. You know, it's a kind of crazy idea, but I do think some people have taken it out of context with the other books that we and other materials we recommend. So please make sure, if you are going to go for no, make sure that you've identified the benchmark ratio of your successful upline in the business. Now, next thing is, I believe that we should all be looking at using technology, because the world has changed in the last 10-15 years, and there are now certain things that you can do using technology which you probably couldn't do 15-20 years ago, and one of them is to get a contact manager. And what this enables you to do is generate unlimited numbers of leads. But what it enables you to do is it enables you to drip feed people with information on a very, very large scale. Now, to give you an idea, I did this recently, and I sent out a message, a broadcast to my database, because I've got quite a large database now, and I got 250 inquiries, responses to one email broadcast. Now, that's a huge number of inquiries, and a large number of people joined our business from that one email broadcast. So if you haven't got a contact manager, I would recommend that you do, because it's a fact that it's all about timing, and people buy when they're ready to buy, and sometimes that's on the 4th or 5th or 6th piece of information that they received. And my question to you, if you haven't got one, if you're running advertising in newspapers or flyers or shop ads or whatever it may be, how many times can you use those leads effectively once you've got those leads? With a contact manager, you can use them on a multiple number of occasions, so I believe that you should do that. Now, moving swiftly on, next thing is, should you work the business or should you love the business? And Wayne Dyer says that you should fall in love with what you're offering, and I do believe that you should put all of your energy, all of your passion, all of your enthusiasm into the business, because if you do that, I believe it does only take 3 to 6 months to build a gold business or a £10,000 PSG with a really profitable structure. It shouldn't take forever. It shouldn't take months and years. I believe it should take weeks rather than months. Now, everybody goes at different speeds, and I understand everybody's circumstances are different, but if you put your passion into it, you should be able to make measurable progress in reasonable time. And again, there will be benchmarks of successful people in the business, and I'm not saying that we have to be as quick as Rob Foster or Bob Webb or wherever it may be, but there will be a benchmark which you could define as measurable progress in reasonable time. So 3 to 6 months to get a really good second income, and 2 to 5 years to build residual income. That's basically the key thing about our business. Now, here's another highlight from, this is a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh no, it's not, it's an SED meeting. Here we go. This SED meeting was, I thought it was actually in Budapest, but I'm told it wasn't. It was actually in Cannes, and that's my reasoning for my reference to alcohol. We have some fantastic times when we've been on the trips, but the purpose of me putting this picture in, and for your notes, is to advise you to very carefully look at who you're associating with, because you shouldn't underestimate the power of your associations. That's what sort of people are you mixing with? Because if you look at this picture, most of the people, I think all the people in this picture, make over 50,000 a year, and it's really, really important. You need to hang around with people like that if you want that kind of income. So don't forget the power of association. Here's another highlight. This was in Mauritius. Mauritius was the most amazing destination. Can you imagine what it's like to have a butler? Well, Clean Easy that week in Mauritius actually gave us a butler. Can you imagine that? It's difficult, like I said, to describe, but if you look at the picture on the beach, our hotel room opened onto the beach. It was absolutely amazing. Another part of the journey as we moved through was we were able to win a Mini Cooper, as you heard Andy say at the beginning, and that was a £13,000 bonus. And what actually happened was I didn't keep the car. There was an unexpected outbreak of common sense, and I sold it back to the dealer and put the money in the bank. I was very mercenary about it, I'm pleased to say, because it's the first time that I've really been like that. But that was our Mini Cooper 2007. That same month we also maintained Silver SED, and the company then gave us an additional £3,200 in the bank in the form of a bonus on top of the car. So that was pretty good. That same month we also had another bonus, because going back to my reference to association with successful people, Gary Watson, my upline, who earns about 100 grand a year in the business, told me about getting my bank charges back, and I actually managed to recoup £6,000 worth of bank charges for about the previous 10 years. So that was quite a month. But it just goes to show that if you hang around successful people, they usually got their ear to the ground and they know what's going on and they've got the finger on the pulse, and they can usually put you on the inside track. So that all came about, that bank charges thing came from Gary Watson, my upline. Now, next thing is, this is a photo of us. We were also able to go to Disney World. I would never ever have dreamed or set the goal of going to Disney World. It's not really my thing, Florida, but our kids, I can tell you, loved it, and every single year since then they've asked me, when can we go back? And I don't really want to go back, in truth. It's not really my thing, but it's a major thing to do with your family, and we were able to do that. But we would never ever have spent $5,000 income, which is what it cost, out of an income that I was earning in a job. Just would never have happened. So I know people do it. I know people do save up their money, but I don't think we're ever managed to do that. So here's another one. Here's a major buzz. This was our team in Thailand, and you'll see there, guy on the end with a hat is Kev Ryder, who is speaking at the Birmingham conference. So make sure you got your ticket, because he's a really good speaker, but make sure you get your ticket to go to the Birmingham conference. It's absolutely crucial. Next thing, linked to the Birmingham conference, is you need to develop your why power. Now, this is a quote from Darren Hardy, who's one of the guest speakers down there, and he has some really tremendous material on goal setting, and a book called The Compound Effect, which is a must read, but it's also vitally important to go down to Birmingham, because that will be a good strategy for you to develop your why power. But it's the reason why you build the business that will get you to where you want to get to. It's not really how to. You can look at how to, and you've got to have a good strategy, but in the end, what it's going to come down to is how much you want it. So develop your why power and review your goals with your upline on a regular basis. Meet with your upline, bronze exec, someone who's earning a residual income, and get them to review your goals and plans with you and refine it as you go, as I said earlier. Now, moving on, follow the system, work your plan, commit to working the plan, and I would also say it is really a matter of just setting some goals, putting a date on the goal. And my question on this slide is really simple. It's, do you know how to plan backwards? Do you know how to plan backwards? If you don't know how to plan backwards, find out from someone who's done it, because your upline will certainly know how to do it. Find out how you plan backwards. Next thing is, once you've got your goals in place and your plan in place, you need to spot the Clean Easy distributor. And this is a picture of me at a recent barbecue with my negative relatives. No, it's not really, but you know, I put this in because I do think it's really, really important that you maintain a happy, positive attitude, which is not always easy to do, but it's especially difficult when you're around people that are negative. And there are plenty of examples of people that have done that in the business. Gary Watson's a good example. He went to work with a load of stinking, thinking, miserable people in a fish factory who told him it wouldn't work and ridiculed what he did. And even now, when I go to barbecues with my negative relatives, at some point it always comes up, and they always have a little dig at me about, am I on my way to my first million? And I used to just laugh it off and smile. Now I just say yes. Anyway, moving on. This is the team in Hong Kong. This is Jim and Jennifer Corby and Andy Fountain. Had a fantastic time in Hong Kong. And very quickly now, this is also on the yacht of the Grand Hyatt Hotel. This was a surprise trip that they put on for us, and they just let us drink champagne all afternoon. It's a hard life, but someone's got to do it. But it was an amazing experience, and again, all the people on that boat, they're all making serious amounts of money, so it was a really good day. Now, next thing. Now, this is a picture of one of my children that I showed you earlier that went to Disney World. This is my second youngest son, and I always call him Half Pint, because as you can see, he's bigger than me, and we have a bit of a laugh about that. He's just finished his GCSEs, and I just want to make this point about what the business has given us. I'm nearly done, but we took a decision a while ago that we were going to educate our children privately. My eldest son has finished school now. He took the decision to conclude his education, but he did go to private school. We were able to educate him privately. We're now debt free. We don't have any of that debt that I spoke about at the beginning, even though we had 100 grand's worth at the beginning. We've been able to educate Ryan privately, and we're 2 days away now from getting his GCSE results. And I'm not particularly worried about grades, but the fact is he is going to get really, really good grades, and we know that. He's very confident about that. So we're looking forward with anticipation to getting his grades, and we're looking forward. He's looking forward. That's the most important thing. He's looking forward to the experience, and he's going to stay on, do A levels, and he's going to go to university. And we're really not concerned about tuition fees. It just doesn't really matter to us. It doesn't matter to him, because we're confident that we can take our own future in our own hands, have the right plan, have our own goals, and develop our own future to whatever level, you know, we want. And this is a picture of him going to the prom a couple of weeks ago, but it's a stark contrast to where most people are. And going back to my negative relatives, my brother has a 17-year-old daughter, and I have to tell you that they're looking forward to their future with apprehension. They're really worried about what's going to happen, whether she's going to get a job, you know, whether they're going to be able to afford this and that, and they really don't know what their future holds. So I'm really delighted that I joined Clean Easy, because not only have I been able to educate my children privately, but I've been able to take control of my future. And this is our latest, one of our latest checks. Our last 3 checks in the business have been over £5,000 a month, and that's given us an income. If you times that by 13, it's an income of over £65,000 a year. That's before the Christmas volume, before the Christmas growth, and without any other growth in our business. And we know that the business is growing at about 20% a year on year. So we have every reason to be confident. We have every reason to be cheerful. We have every reason to know that we can take the future in our own hands and develop whatever income and lifestyle we're looking for. And that's all happened as a result of 2 things: A, deciding to join the business, but B, deciding to stay in the business and to get good at the business. And then finally, I just want to finish by giving you 3 magic ingredients that if you put into your business, I believe that you cannot fail. And the first of those is enthusiasm. You do need to be enthusiastic, you do need to be positive, and it means really putting in place thoughtful, planned, directed passion. Put some energy and some enthusiasm into what you do every single day that you work the business. If you're part-time, fantastic. Just put as much energy and as much enthusiasm into whatever hours you have available. If it's only 15 hours a week, 20 hours a week, just put in the best quality directed passion that you can put into those hours. Second thing is you will need some determination, and you need resolve. You need to basically make a decision that you will stay the course and put in your best effort, and have the confidence to keep doing that. That's really, really important. But just as a point on determination, if you work with your upline, it's easier. If you follow the advice of your upline, of your incredible successful uplines who have the lifestyle, have the incomes, if you work with those people and follow their lead, you'll need less determination. But you just got to commit and treat it like a serious business and develop a long-term perspective in the business for yourself and your family. And then finally, my final thing is patience, which I used to really struggle with, because it's kind of unfashionable these days to advise people to be patient. But I would say to you that the obstacles are there to, they're not there to obstruct you, they're there to instruct you, they're there to help you get better. And you just need to have enough mental and emotional strength to keep going when it's difficult. And there probably will be some challenges, there'll be some bends in the road on your journey, but a bend in the road need not be the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. So keep charging, keep going on your journey. I'm going to hand you back to Andy now. Thank you very much for your time. Sorry about the technical issues at the beginning there. I think I was struggling with the technology, but that's okay. Anyway, thanks very much.